Well, Razorback fans, just like we all predicted, Trevon Brazile is returning to Arkansas for a third season. Okay.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of the John Nabors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon starting at 4 o'clock on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. And today's episode here of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, so how's that for some breaking news? You know, the Razorback basketball team has definitely been one that has been so interesting for so many different reasons, and really ever since John Calipari arrived on campus. And one of the things that he mentioned when he arrived on campus is how there's no team. There's no team. There's nobody that was left over from the team previously. Everybody entered in the transfer portal or declared for the draft, and there was just nobody. There was nobody there. And I kind of laughed about it because it was true, but also was like, well, you know, that's the way it goes. And, you know, it'd be nice maybe to have one or two or three players back. And if you remember on this podcast specifically, when people were asking like, hey, would they want any of the players back from last year's team? I remember that I said, well, there was really just three players that I wouldn't mind having back. And it was Caleb Battle, Tremont Mark, and Trevon Brazile. A lot of people had issues or took issues with Trevon Brazile. I'm not sure why, but overall, I felt like it'd be nice to get one of those guys. Well, you didn't get Battle and you didn't get Mark, and Brazile was going to the NBA. So I was like, that's the way it goes sometimes, you know, how it happens. What are you going to do? Well, little did we know that Trevon Brazile was not done yet. Because after he entered into the NBA draft, he did say that he was also entering into the transfer portal weeks later. It was kind of like, okay, interesting. But you do you, Bubby. See what you do. See what you find out. And as time went on, you start hearing about, you know, the NBA prospects maybe not being as high as was expected or anything like that. But I still felt like, hey, this guy's, he's been in college for 3 years. You know, he's probably just wants to move on and play professionally somewhere. Maybe he's tired of school, tired of doing all that stuff. Well, then Arkansas, that just happened yesterday. I was actually getting ready to do my show. The Razorback official Twitter account, every single time they added a player during this offseason, they added a Razorback emoji. So when they added one player, they had one. When they added the second player, they had two Razorback emojis and so on and so forth. Well, then they tweeted out, just randomly, nobody had heard anything or announced that this many emojis. It was 9. And you're like, wait a minute, what does this mean? Wait, who's the 9th? I haven't seen anything. And then just mic drop. Bum, bum, bum. This just came out. Trevon Brazile's returning. Oh, okay. Okay. Just absolutely absurd. He took part in the NBA draft combine. And he did withdraw from it before the May 29th deadline. And he's the 9th player. Just unreal. You know, he was projected as a first-round pick in this year's draft because of a torn ACL, but his stock dropped on account of fluctuating production and missed because of what the program described as knee soreness. So that was one of the red flags that popped up, was that he had been dealing with injury. So, yeah, that awkward fall against Ole Miss, and, you know, he just never was the same. He was SEC Player of the Week. I remember that during the Duke game week, where he was pretty incredible. He had 19 points, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks against Duke. He averaged about 12 points a game, 6 rebounds a game in his first season at Arkansas. And this past year, he averaged 8.5 points per game and about 6 rebounds a game in the limited time that he saw. So that's that. He's re-energized, he's rejuvenated, and he is coming back to Arkansas. Now, again, for some weird reason, and I'm trying to figure out why, but for some weird reason, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of Razorback fans had a negative reaction to this. I don't know why. What did Trevon Brazil do at Arkansas that made you not like him or not want him back on the team? I mean, honestly. And don't bring up stupid rumors. That was started by stupid people. Because it's stupid. Don't be stupid. So take away that stupidity. Why would you not want Trevon Brazil back on the team? Okay? What's the worst case scenario? Seriously, what's the worst case scenario for having Trevon Brazil on this Razorback basketball team next year? He gets hurt again? Okay. Do you not already have 8 other scholarship players that are elite? 5-star players? The number 1 and the number 4 transfer portal players on the team already? So say if the worst case scenario happens and he gets hurt, is that really going to impact your team that poorly or that tremendously? It may hurt a little, but it's not like you were relying on Trevon Brazil to be your number 1 guy. This past year, being honest, folks, going into the season, Trevon Brazil was looked upon as being the guy. The guy that was going to have to lead the team in scoring or was going to lead the team in scoring, like being one of the key pieces. Obviously, he kept getting hurt, and that was a problem, but he was relied upon for that. This year, that's not going to be the case. He's already joining a highly talented team that Calipari has constructed and put together. So again, I ask, why would you not want Trevon Brazil? Look at the worst case scenario. What about the best case scenario? How about we look at that? Best case scenario is Trevon Brazil ends up staying healthy, ends up being the great player with true development to his craft and to his skill set, and ends up being a pivotal piece in an already very talented team that is able to provide an athleticism that we have seen how good it is and can be able to add length, size, and athleticism. Why would you not want that? When I saw the news, I was excited about it. I was like, great, that's awesome. I didn't think it was possible. But it was just weird to see mixed reactions. I mean, most people were excited, I'd say. But there were still some people who were like, no, I don't want this. If he's not any good, he's okay. What? Stop. John Calipari is your head coach. John Calipari has coached incredible players and developed incredible talent. He's done that for longer than anybody active and as good as anybody. And this may come as quite a shock to you, but I'm going to trust John Calipari. If John Calipari sees value in having Trevon Brazil back on this team, I'm going to trust him with it. I'm going to think he's got a good idea of what he wants and how he wants it to look. So, again, anybody that's upset by this, anybody that's thinking this is a bad thing, I have no idea why. And I don't know what to tell you. Again, the worst case scenario is he gets hurt and he doesn't play, and then you end up only being a top 15 team. What? Be excited about this, folks. I think it's a great move for him. I'm excited to see how he develops. I think he's going to be rejuvenated and re-energized. And we've seen how good he can be when he's on his game. Now, it needs to be more consistent. There's no doubt. But his good is as good as anybody. And I just don't understand and don't think that anybody should ever have second guesses about having Trevon Brazil on the team. So enjoy it, embrace it, and have fun with it. Please. We'll talk about the lineup here in a second because I think that's an interesting part of it. But first, I got to tell you about the Gametime app. Here's the thing about the Gametime app. We all know that we want to attend sporting events. And we love to attend concerts, and we love to attend comedy shows and theater. Like, we like to go to events, right? Events are important. But the problem is getting tickets sometimes. Sometimes when you go to certain websites or certain apps or even ticket office, it's a pain. It's a hassle. Well, with the Gametime app, you don't have to worry about that anymore because they make it so easy and as affordable as anybody when it comes to buying your tickets. They have last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off of buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. And they also have even more flash deals with exclusive in-app deals and select seats ahead of the game or event. And they also do the all-in pricing, which is huge, where you can just select this toggled feature. And once you put it on, you're going to see the prices up front with all the fees. So that way there's no surprises once you get to checkout. And they also give you the lowest price guaranteed. Anytime that you find a ticket that is cheaper from somebody else, Gametime will not only match it, but will credit you 110% of the difference between the prices. So that's a guarantee that nobody else offers. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets or any tickets at this time by downloading the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Now that Trevon Brazil is coming back, that gives Arkansas 9 players on the current roster. Pretty solid, I'd say, so far. You have 6 transfer commitments and 3 high school commitments. Now, the 3 high school commitments, starting with them, you got Billy Richmond. You also got who's a 6'6", 200-pound small forward from Memphis, Tennessee, who is the number 24 player in the country. You have Boogie Fland, the 6'2" point guard from Harlem, New York, who is the number 19 player in the country. And you also have Carter Knox, who is the number 21 player in the country, who is a 6'6", 211-pound forward. All of these players are 5-star, bona fide 5-star athletes, and they're the ones that you got out of high school. You got 3. Now comes the transfer portal, which the fascinating thing is the players you got from Kentucky and then the players you got from elsewhere. The very first player that committed was Big Z. You know, he's 7'2", 234 pounds. He's going to be playing at Arkansas next year. He's been from the get-go. He played at Kentucky last year. Took him a while to get eligible because of some issues that were there. But he's from Croatia, and I'd say he's a pretty big get. Throw in another Florida transfer, a guy named Adu Thiero, 6'8", 222 pounds. Last year averaged 7.5 points, 5 rebounds, 1 block, and is one of the better players that was entering into the transfer portal. How about the other Kentucky player, DJ Wagner? In this particular case, you have a guy who's 6'4", 192 pounds. He was the number 1 player coming out of high school just 2 years ago. He averaged 10 points a game, 2 rebounds a game, 3.5 assists per game. And he actually had a season high against Arkansas on March 2nd where he scored 19 points. So you have 3 high school players, 3 Kentucky transfer players. And as far as the other 3 go, you got ones that are big gets. And without question, the biggest one is John L. Davis from Florida Atlantic. He's the number 1 player out of the transfer portal. He averaged 18 points per game. He's 6'4", 203 pounds. He averaged over 18 points a game, about 6.5 rebounds a game, 3 assists per game, and shot 44% from three-point land. He was the AAC Player of the Year and played in the Final Four. Biggest get out of the portal while he's coming to Arkansas. The other one is Jonas Adu, who's from Tennessee, 6'11", 241 pounds. He's got 1 year left. But this past year, he averaged 11.5 points per game, 7.5 rebounds a game, and 2 blocks per game. He was one of the biggest and most improved players in the SEC, and he earned second-team All-SEC with All-SEC defensive team honors for Tennessee. And last and not least, you got Trevon Brazile, which need we say more? We know a lot about Trevon Brazile. So think about that, folks. You got the players you have this year in the roster. 3 McDonald's All-American high school players, 3 former Kentucky Wildcat players that were highly regarded coming out of high school, and then you have 3 transfer portal players that 2 of them played in the SEC, and even though Adu was actually All-SEC second team and All-SEC defensive team, Trevon Brazile was preseason All-SEC before he was injured this past year. And the other one being John L. Davis, who is a dude, the greatest transfer portal get. That's your team. That's your team. I saw John Rothstein, which, people can say what they want about John Rothstein. I actually really like John Rothstein. He's funny. But he tweeted out, he's like, does Arkansas look like the second best team in the SEC behind Alabama? Feels that way on June 4th. And he has moved them up to number 9 in the country. Okay. You see that, you hear that. I know they got to do it on the court, and that's what everybody's going to be waiting on. But folks, that is a nasty roster. There's not many rosters that are going to be more talented than that in the SEC, if not the country. That's huge. That's big time. And I cannot wait to see it how it goes down. But I put out a starting lineup of who I thought would be the starting lineup for this. And personally, I didn't think it was that controversial. But some people did. Nelly Davis, Boogie Fland, Adu Thiero, Trevon Brazile, and Jonas Adu, that to me is going to be the starting 5. I mean, Nelly Davis is starting no matter what. Like, that's a guarantee. I think Adu is also starting no matter what. I think that's a guarantee. But here's the thing. It's like even if it's not Brazil, even if it's not Thiero, even if it's not Fland, like whatever, it doesn't matter. No matter who you put out there, you're going to have an elite level of players. Big time players. Because it's like, I just mentioned those 5. And then coming off the bench, if that was to happen, coming off the bench, Big Z, yeah, he's pretty good. Pretty good. Not bad. What about other McDonald's All-Americans? Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Like, that's just, it's a great lineup, and it's a great roster. And hopefully Arkansas can keep this up because it is a lot of fun to talk about. And it's a lot of fun to dream. And like most of you, you're probably like, can we go ahead and skip to basketball season? Because it's going to be a fun one. But we'll talk about some other news that officially happened with Razorback Basketball coming up next. So stay with us.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I mentioned this a little bit, but I'm going to mention it again now that it's confirmed and we talked about it. But you have officially, well, I shouldn't say officially, but it's being reported by national people who, they wouldn't make this up or anything like that, but it doesn't matter. But anyways, you got the Jimmy V Classic. Jimmy V Classic in basketball. It's being held on December 10th at Madison Square Garden this year. All right? We talked about this game being at Madison Square Garden and Arkansas being a part of it, and now it's official. Arkansas is going to play Michigan in that matchup, and Tennessee will play Miami. Now, here's the deal. A few things to take away from that. One, playing at Madison Square Garden is one of the coolest things you can do. And if you're playing basketball at the college level, it's a big deal. Like, we've seen places that have had basketball games. We've seen people play on a naval airship. We've seen people play on, like, outside. We've seen, cool places. And that's all awesome. But Madison Square Garden, kind of the mecca of the Big Apple, like, it's a very big deal to play a game there. Especially it's a regular season game. So I love the fact that it's in New York City. Plenty of recruiting up there too. I also love the fact that it's going to be on December 10th. Because one thing that I always hated about all these things is that it was always on Thanksgiving and the week of Thanksgiving. I never liked that. That was pretty annoying because I felt like I could never go. Or if you had holiday plans already, Thanksgiving with the family, you're kind of handcuffed. This at least provides that to people who want to go but can't because if it's usually the Thanksgiving weekend. This gives them the opportunity to go. And finally, Michigan. Playing Michigan, who's a good program, is always a big deal. But when you throw in the fact that Dusty May is now the new head coach, right? Both teams now have new head coaches. But Dusty May is over at Michigan, who was at FAU, who was coaching John L. Davis, who now happens to be at Arkansas. That's kind of a wicked and really cool thing. I think it's awesome. So it's the Cal effect. You don't get this game unless you have John Calipari as your coach. Just doesn't happen. But it's going to, who knows what the teams are going to look like? Who knows how good those teams are going to be? But I would have Arkansas favored in this game in the early going. Arkansas minus 5.5. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But either way, it's going to be awesome. I know a lot of Razorback fans are going to make the trip, especially if the football season goes awry. People are going to be looking for something to get excited about. So that'll be a really cool thing to be a part of. But either way, appreciate all of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you.